Have you ever wanted to talk to someone, but you were too nervous to try? You're blissfully walking at the park and you come across a stranger. You strike up a conversation, and before you know it, exchange info. And someone who was once a stranger, now a friend. Talking to strangers is a skill that is intimidating for many, just like it was for myself in the past. But the exciting thing about it is knowing that anything could come from it. Take me for example. When I was 14 years old, I watched a video just like the one that you're watching right now. I made a goal to talk to more strangers, at least make small talk and see where it would go. So at 14, I walked on a bus and said, "Hey, how are you? Thank you," after I paid for my ticket. I sat at the front and realized there wasn't anyone else on the bus. A perfect chance to break the ice. I asked him, "So, how was your day?" And we continued to have a conversation. His name was Jay. Jay was a father and had grandkids. Through the conversation with Jay, I learned from him a few basics about investing my money. Talks of gold, silver, stocks, and even cryptocurrency, and this was back in 2016. I got Jay's phone number and we kept in touch, ultimately learning enough to start making my first few investments in the cryptocurrency market, just a few months later. Why am I sharing this with you? Because now, 7 years later, I'm still keeping in touch with Jay. We text and we just check in on each other every now and then, but we still talk about cryptocurrency, and all of his advice has stuck with me through my whole life, of course with my own research as well. But it's nice that I have a person that I can message whenever I want to have a little chat about where to invest money or what things are looking the best on the market. Before talking to that bus driver Jay, I remember that I was very shy at talking to strangers. But keep in mind, I was in 9th grade, so I'll give myself some grace. But what I knew is that I wanted to change that and try to figure out how I could become more social and comfortable in a public environment. So I made an effort to try and sharpen up my social skills, especially with strangers in public, because I knew that that was a skill that would help me in other parts of my life, whether it was working at my barbershop or now that I film weddings and do photography for weddings. At the weddings, it really helps me just strike up conversations with guests, with bridesmaids, groommates, and just interact with everybody in general. Because I really feel that your energy and your openness to have conversations with people can be read like a book. If you are not willing to have a conversation, immediately your body language will change and no one will also want to reciprocate that. And I also want to note that in general, I think it really adds to the quality of your life. Because who wants to be that person that doesn't interact with anybody and goes around always feeling caved up? I feel like life has so much to give, and it's always better to try to see what from life you can get. So let me give you another example of one instance in my life where talking to a stranger really benefited and really brought a lot of good things that I never saw coming. So 2 years ago, I was really interested in working in the film and photography space, but I had absolutely no clue on how to get in there. But one of my best friends, Nikolai, he was one day on a hike, hiking up this huge mountain, and at the top of the hike, there were two guys there. One of them was named Carter. My friend Nikolai was interested in sparking up a conversation with him, so he did. Nikolai's a very social guy. And basically, he started talking with Carter and they became friends. From that one conversation, they swapped information, and later down the line, they continued to meet up and hang out. And one time at my friend Nikolai's birthday party, Carter attended. And at that birthday party, I went up and I talked to Carter, got to know him, and he was super, receptive of the way that I was approaching him, and we just got along really well. And I came to find out that he actually does videography for weddings with one of the bigger companies in our local area. And through meeting Carter, well, we became really good friends, that's one. Like, in general, we definitely clicked. We had similar mentalities on the way that we wanted to live our lives, and we just became really good friends through that. And 1 year down the line, after I've told him previously that I wanted to get into like weddings and I'd be interested in giving that a shot, he was the first person that reached out and got me connected with one of the co-owners of the film company, and I was able to go and try out filming on a wedding. And after that, I started working with the company, getting more jobs, and at this point, I feel like I've learned so much about weddings, and I shoot at least 20 to 30 weddings every single year. So that was one of the blessings that came out of the power of talking to strangers. As Nikolai talked to Carter on a hike, and I got to meet Carter at a birthday party. From there, the rest was essentially history. Yes, it can be intimidating, and yes, there will be people that aren't as open to having that conversation with strangers. But trust me, there are lots of people out there that would like to chat, and I would even argue more people than not, especially in a post-COVID world where people were almost used to not interacting with others, and now we're trying to get back into that social landscape. At least like from what I see around me in Vancouver, that's kind of the way that things feel. So for you, I have 3 solid tips that will help you get out of your comfort zone and talk with more strangers. Tip 1, the 1 breath rule. I think it's important not to think too much when you're trying to just spark up a casual conversation with someone, or it'll come off a bit too structured or not as natural. So what I would say is take 1 deep breath, and once you've got that deep breath in, say something to the person. Give them a compliment. Comment on something in the area that you are. You could say, wow, this sun is so beautiful right now. Something like that is perfect. Tip 2, just say, hey, how are you? I think the easiest way to approach someone is just by looking at them and saying, hey, how are you? That's such an easy way to break the ice. There's no pressure to continue the conversation. You know, don't be that guy that comes into an elevator and is super quiet, doesn't say a thing, even when everybody leaves the elevator. If there's someone else in the elevator and you walk in, it's so easy to just look up and say, hey, how are you? Walk in and click your floor number. Tip 3, remember, you will probably never see them again. That's my real take here, is that there's so many people in the world, and if you're just hanging out in public and there's someone close to you that you might just want to exchange a word with, why not? Because even if nothing comes about it, you're not going to see them anyways, or you're not going to be interacting with them on a day-to-day basis anyways. There's no loss there on your end. All it is you said something and either they responded positively or they didn't. And that's okay, because you're not going to see them again. But if the interaction was positive, maybe you will. Why don't you go try it yourself? Because the world is funny that it tends to give you what you put out. So put out good vibes. And someone who was once a stranger could now be a friend.